It's Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Thanks for joining us. Our guest is Matt Delmont. He's a professor at Scripps College, and he is the author of this book, The Nicest Kids in Town. It's about the integration of American Bandstand? Question mark?
Sort of.
Talk to me, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Sure.
So I actually thought the book was going to be about the integration of American Bandstand and how Bandstand was progressive with regards to racial relations. When I started out the book project, that's what I thought the story was going to be about.
We all saw Hairspray, and it seemed as if, although that was a local show, that kind of these dance shows were integrated with a little tension, but ultimately everyone was singing Kumbaya.
Yeah, that's actually what I thought when I started. That's what Dick Clark has always claimed, and I thought I'd be able to use that integration as a contrast to what I knew was going on in the schools and housing in Philadelphia. So a positive story of rock and roll
Because
television.
American Bandstand launched in Philly.
It did, yeah. So it started in Philadelphia. It was there from the early 50s until 64. Once I actually got into the research, I realized and I found evidence that the show remained segregated and continued to discriminate against black teens for the whole time it was in Philadelphia.
So that means that the claim by Dick Clark that he was instrumental in integrating American Bandstand may not be completely accurate.
It just doesn't hold up to the facts. All the research I've been able to find, oral histories, newspaper accounts, all the photographic evidence, it does not support the contention that the show is integrated.
Now, have you reached out to Mr. Clark, his people, to see if he has any thoughts on this very issue? Because, look, it's a source of pride for him that he was part of the integration of a very significant television property.
I did. When I started the research, I reached out to his publicist, and through his publicist, he declined to comment.
So why did it turn out the way you say it did? Why does history tell us that, in fact, American Bandstand did not integrate in a smooth fashion? It was only when it moved out to Los Angeles in the mid-60s that it was kind of an easy transition toward full integration.
Well, I think the real story is that integration, the idea of black and white teenagers dancing together on television, was really taboo in Philadelphia, but then also nationally. So there just wasn't a large market for that among advertisers, among television viewers, either in Philadelphia or nationally.
And you just told me something that blew me away. So if there was an epilogue to the movie Hairspray, what would that epilogue have been?
The epilogue would be that rather than the happy ending that Hairspray depicts, that the show actually received bomb threats and went off the air about a month later.
Solely because they integrated.
Solely because they integrated. So the part that they integrated, the Buddy Dean show, was actually true, but the happy ending wasn't true. The show went off the air a month later.
Okay, so when Bandstand came out to Los Angeles in 1964, talk to me about that process, because I assume at that point race relations were still pretty tense. I don't think the Civil Rights Act had been signed yet, and so it was still, a pretty anxious time.
Yeah, when it comes out to Los Angeles, two things are going in its favor in terms of integration. One, it's on only once a week, so it's more of a Hollywood production at this point. When it's in Philadelphia, it's really rooted in a neighborhood. It broadcasts from this neighborhood in West Philadelphia. By the time it's out here, it's a Hollywood production. And second, 64, the racial relations are not perfect, but they're better than they were in Philadelphia in 1957. So it integrates without any real comment when it comes to Hollywood.
That's true. I mean, literally, all of a sudden it goes on the air nationally once a week, and there's radio silence, if I can use that term, once the show hits the air with mixed race dancing?
There's still only a couple African American teens on the show when it's in Los Angeles, but that whole time it's in Philadelphia National from 57 to 64, the idea of having any sort of significant representation of African American teens just doesn't happen.
So you have a couple of African Americans in 64 when it comes out to Los Angeles. Then what? Then what happens? Because as I remember American Bandstand, from the 70s, it seemed incredibly integrated. Am I right?
It was, yeah. I mean, so the show was much more diverse by the late 60s and 1970s. The interesting thing there, though, is when Soul Train comes on the air in 1970, Dick Clark gets very afraid because Soul Train starts to win away viewers, win away advertisers.
It was ultra integrated.
It was ultra integrated.
If anything, I was excluded, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, it gave a really strong representation of African American dance culture.
Right.
And Dick Clark actually tries to launch his own show called Soul Unlimited to compete with it, which is fascinating.
I want to thank you for writing this.
Yeah.
I really do. It's an important chapter in our history. His name is Matt Delmont. He is the author of The Nicest Kids in Town. I'm Brad Pomerance. Thanks for watching Charter Local Edition. Back to HLN.
You know what happens when you don't know your politics. Watch Charter California Edition. In-depth half-hour interviews with our elected officials, educators, and community leaders. Tune to Charter's original programming on Channel 101 at these times to learn more about our community, our state, and our future. Charter California Edition with Brad Pomerance. Stay current, California.